series of Meet the Diplomat, and I think it's a great initiative, because diplomacy is something we really need to bring closer to people and make it more familiar. And I'm sure a lot of you already know a lot about it, but I don't think we can ever work enough and make enough efforts to make diplomacy somehow more, more familiar and more accessible somehow. I'm very impressed, I have to say, by your way of operating, how professionally you seem to be doing everything. So I hope this is the beginning of a good relationship. And the topic, I have to say, that you have chosen for today is spot on. It is so relevant. So it's really congratulations for that. And of course, this event is a good example, of the new times that we are in. And like you mentioned, that I'm in Harare, I'm based in Lusaka. Now I'm in Harare, and I'm able to connect from here. It's a very good time to talk about evolving diplomatic practices. We might have thought that diplomacy is one of those bastions of tradition and unchanged, ways of working. But just like everybody else in the world, I have been able to see in the past year, a little bit more than a year, that we really have, adapted and evolved in the way that we operate and work, just like everybody else in the world. And I personally, I have been astounded by the agility and flexibility of, the diplomatic community and everybody that, we generally work with. And it really doesn't matter where you are in the world, whether it's like, in Northern Europe, like Finland, or in Southern Africa, like Zambia or Zimbabwe or whatever. We have all just done this great, jump and leap, and, virtual ways of operating have really, really become, part of the mainstream of our operations. I will say just a few words about myself, so that you have an idea who you're talking with. My name is H.E Pirjo Suomela-Chowdhury, as you heard. I'm the ambassador of Finland in Lusaka, Zambia, and I'm also accredited as ambassador in Zimbabwe, Malawi, and since a little bit more recently, Democratic Republic of Congo. I've been in Lusaka now for about 2.5 years. Previously, I was ambassador of Finland in Abuja, accredited as ambassador to Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, and Liberia. I'm a career diplomat with about 24 years in the Finnish Foreign Ministry. I've also been posted in China, in Beijing. That was my first posting. And then in Chile, in Santiago de Chile, in Latin America. So I've tried my best to go through the different continents, except Europe, because I feel, since I come from Europe, that, I get enough of that in any case. It's much more interesting to go a little bit further afield. And now I seem to have parked myself in Africa, which I'm really happy about, because this is already my second posting in Africa, and it really, really has been very, very gratifying. While I've been, of course, also working in the Foreign Ministry in Finland, in Helsinki, most of the time there I've been working with United Nations and European Union issues. So I've worked also with multilateral issues and a lot with bilateral issues, with political issues, with development issues and trade issues and so forth. So I'm really an example, I would say, of a typical Finnish diplomat. We are generalists. We rarely specialize. So I'm I think, a good example of that. During the past year, during COVID, my work has changed a lot, like world has changed for all of us. Just one of the big changes has been reduced travel. So it's not so common these days actually to find me, outside Zambia. I happen to be in Harare in Zimbabwe now, but like I mentioned, I hadn't traveled here for more than my previous visit was beginning of March last year, and it has been, of course, with COVID, very difficult to travel. I did go to DRC once because I got the opportunity there in November to present my credentials to the president. But yeah, like I said, in the past year, a lot of things have changed, and we, along with others, as diplomats and as Finnish Foreign Ministry and Embassy, we have really done a digital leap. Of course, in a place like Finland, we are supposed to be digital leapers already, from before. But I would be the first to admit that I'm not always I should be, as ambassador of Finland, but I'm not always the best in all these, technical, solutions and applications. The first time I ever heard the word Zoom was a little bit more than a year ago. I still remember, when my colleague came to me, we were organizing an event in the embassy that was supposed to be a physical event, but then came COVID. And in a couple of weeks, we really quickly had to, transform the whole event, which we did not want to cancel and did not consider ever canceling. We had to turn it into a digital format, and that's when I first heard about Zoom. And then, of course, came all the others, WebEx and Teams and all these different virtual platforms. But it really was a very, very quick, fast change, and I was amazed, I have to say, because we even locally, with diplomatic colleagues. Locally, we started doing a lot of, and for instance, within the European Union, we started ambassadors and diplomats. We started doing a lot of virtual activity, and there wasn't one single colleague who would have come and said, "Oh, sorry, I'm not really, I can't do this technical thing." When people have to change, they change. You knew that if you don't, quickly find out how these platforms work, you're going to be out. So it was not an option. So the adaptation was really very quick and very, astounding, I have to say. And it's been, over the year, it's been very interesting to see also that really the world is, in so many ways, is a global village, and also this, digital and virtual approach, it works everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if I speak to, diplomats in Zambia, if I speak to one of the regional organizations like COMESA, or European diplomats or colleagues in Finland or whatever. It's the same thing. Everybody all of a sudden is on virtual platforms, and nobody seems. Of course, there are always some, also, or there can be technical problems, but basically everybody is very fluently working on these virtual platforms. And when we're talking about diplomacy and international relations, I really think that COVID, with all the challenges, all the terrible tragedy that it has brought with it, and we know that in so many countries it has created really very challenging situations, health-wise and also economy-wise, that it really is a terrible thing and tragedy for humankind. But at the same time, it has brought some perhaps positive things with it, and international relations, I believe, it has very quickly taken to a new level. A colleague of mine in our ministry, in the beginning of COVID, when we all, started with this virtual platform, said that COVID has been a good consultant, And in a way, that is very true. She meant, we pay these consultants to come and change the ways our organizations operate, and no consultant ever, no matter how good and expensive, no consultant could ever make us change our ways as quickly. So, sometimes you also hear this saying, when it's economic crisis, for instance, that we shouldn't waste a crisis. And I think that applies also to COVID. It's a global crisis, and we have to make sure that with all the challenges, all the negative things, we also, draw out all the benefit that probably, and all the lessons that we could, possibly learn from this situation. These virtual opportunities, they were there all the time, or at least, for some time or for a long time. So we could have been doing all this virtual activity, well before COVID, but it's one of those strange things that sometimes, things just don't happen without some kind of, outside push or something that forces you to change. And if I really, I was trying to think when I was preparing for this meeting, I was trying to think of the concrete things that have happened in my work and in the embassy during the past year, with the new situation of the pandemic affecting the world, and with us so much more than before turning to virtual ways of communicating. And the first thing that comes to my mind is an event that we organized just a few weeks ago. It's actually something we call the Finnish Week of Business in Zambia. We've already done it a few times, but now we had to do it virtually, and it actually became a much bigger and more important event than I originally thought. It is in any case the flagship event of Finland in Zambia, and we are very much focusing on trade promotion, and this event is kind of to really highlight and boost that trade promotion work that we do every day. And it was amazing to see how this event that we used to do in physical format, how it could work so well also in virtual format. And of course, we were a seminar program, which was all virtual. We had this individual, business to business meetings, and it was, I have to say, I'm happy I was not the one coordinating the whole thing, because it was any one of you who have had anything to do with organizing this kind of events, it's a very big and complicated and demanding exercise. But it was great to see that it is possible to do all that in a virtual format. And we had, I will not go in more detail to that event, but it was a great success. There will be a lot of follow-up and results and all that. We have done a lot more events, of course, in the embassy, a lot of small meetings, business to business meetings between companies and different kinds of organizations, meetings with the Zambian government, for instance, Ministry of Higher Education. We've done events with chambers of commerce in Finland, and private sector in Zambia, different kinds of institutions. I've been able to connect with my so-called side accreditation countries, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and DRC, in a way that I would, otherwise not have been able, because events have been organized in virtual format. For instance, meetings of diplomats. Also, the Finnish. In Finland, we recently produced a new Africa strategy, and our ministry used a lot of virtual means for consulting, the different parts of the Finnish society, and also our African partners virtually in producing that strategy. I've even had, much more contact, I think, with my own foreign ministry in Finland during COVID, because they have organized there's been a lot of contact between the foreign ministry and our embassies. Our annual ambassadors meeting. This is something that normally happens every August. All ambassadors of Finland from all over the world, normally we get together in Helsinki, and we have a big meeting. This year or last year, it was all organized in a virtual format, and we're going to have the same this August. And the program was exactly the same as normally, apart from receptions and things like that. It was exactly the same. And I have to say, it was like 3 days of meetings. I sat there all day. It was very engaging. And every day in the afternoon or evening, when the meeting program was finished, I looked around, and I was almost surprised to find myself in my office in Lusaka, because I had been so much drawn into that program. But yeah, our ministry has been organizing bilateral consultations between Finland and different countries in Africa and elsewhere in virtual ways. We've even done like virtual trade visits. So these are some of the concrete examples of what has been happening. Then in your questions you put the aspect of challenges. What are the challenges? And of course there are those also. The need for personal contacts in diplomacy obviously will never go away. You're never going to have a completely virtual diplomacy, so you do need to meet people personally, and this situation really has made that much more complicated than before. Then issues like confidentiality, of course, as you are so well aware, when you are using virtual platforms, confidentiality cannot be at the same level as it often would be in individual and personal meetings. So you do need to take all that into account. Then also, these virtual means can be good in like maintaining contacts, especially with people that you have already met. But then if for a long time you don't have any of that physical contact, then I'm afraid that the distance can really grow, too much. There are, of course, always the technical vulnerabilities, and sometimes it can be quite frustrating. Sometimes it works very well, but there can always be that issue of a technical vulnerability. And then a different kind of issue. I think we all need to kind of, even more than before, all of us being busy people and a lot of things to do, we need to focus also on things like prioritizing our work in a new way. Because, when it's like in theory, so easy to, join any event, go virtually anywhere and attend any meeting, I think you have to even more carefully think, what is my focus? Where do I, how do I use my time? Because the opportunities are seamlessly endless, but, the hours that you have in your day or the days that you have in your week, unfortunately, very unfortunately, they have not increased. They are still the same. Then the potential, I think what I spoke earlier, it was a lot about the potential and what you can do. You can reach much more people. You can have incredible meetings like this, for instance, where you combine people from 3 continents. It is really, a wonderful thing to see. This can be now like really quite commonplace. You can save a lot of time and money, and in this new virtual environment, I believe that also when it comes to diplomacy, if we use the opportunity in a good way, it could actually intensify sometimes our contacts and activate our diplomatic relations, because, you know, being able to connect virtually can kind of lower the threshold for having a meeting. So you know, because you don't have to invest all that time, you don't have to invest all that money always, you don't have to travel to the other side of the world. You still will need to do that sometimes, but maybe you don't have to do that for every meeting. So it could actually, you know, intensify our relations, you know, in you know, between countries and international organizations, and it's just basically up to us to you know, make that happen. Then I think another aspect of your questions that you put to me was kind of what are the prospects for the future, and that is with this, you know, virtual environment for diplomacy, and that is the most interesting question, of course, I would say, and that is the question where we have, like, in a way, least answers at the moment. The big long-term impacts, they are yet to be seen. We are in the middle. Actually, I think we are in the beginning of this change. So, and from the middle and from the beginning is difficult to see. We will be able to tell 50 years from now what the impact was. How did, you know, all this change, for instance, diplomacy. But one thing I'm very sort of adamant about is that we really should not and we must not go back to the old. We have to, and I really believe we will, have to combine, of course, a lot of the old, and sort of the fundamentals of diplomacy. I don't think they will change at all in a way, but we have to combine the old with new and come up with, in a way, something else, or something, I would say, even better than we have had until now. And I believe that in sort of technical terms, you know, or physical terms or whatever, the future of diplomacy is hybrid. It will be a combination of physical and virtual contacts. We don't know, we still don't know what will happen with travel. It is very much reduced now. We don't know for how long, for how much. It could be, you know, this situation could have produced some very permanent and drastic changes, or it could be that in a few years' time, in a couple of years' time, we find ourselves travel-wise in the more or less in the same situation where we were, you know, 2 years ago. So we don't know. It could be also that role of embassies becomes bigger, because at least in the embassies you will always have people, you know, present in the field. And if from capitals, you know, officials are not able to travel as much, who knows? Maybe that will increase the role and enhance the role of embassies even more than until now. But this is all just kind of, you know, speculation. It all remains to be seen, and it remains for ourselves, of course, to you know, try to direct these developments in a way that would be most beneficial for diplomacy and international relations. That is one thing that is absolutely certain. International cooperation is needed more than ever, with all the positive potential for international cooperation, like, for instance, in strengthening multilateral institutions, multilateral cooperation, but also with all the big challenges like climate change, conflicts, and of course COVID. COVID, if anything, really has driven it home that it's a global village, and we are not, you know, none of us can, you know, wherever you are in the world, we cannot rest for a moment or feel, you know, safe until we have come together as a global community and solved this challenge. The momentum, I believe, in Africa-Europe relations is really great. this is a good moment for that. We must work together to promote all the different aspects of our relations: development, trade, investment, education, and as I was writing my notes, I used an abbreviation which I had not used before, and that was P2P, because normally we talk about B2B with a soft B, business to business, but P2P, person to person, is actually really important also. And one thing, for instance, in Zambia, we tried to do, and also in this virtual context, is activate alumni relations, because in Zambia, there are loads of people, Zambians, who have had some contact with Finland, who have studied or spent time in Finland, and vice versa. A lot of Finns who have that personal contact with Zambia, and that is such a valuable thing. Nothing can ever replace that personal experience in the other countries. So I really, believe we need to actively foster those also B2B, but also P2P contacts. So finally, I hope I've not spoken too long. Finally, I just want to really congratulate you, and especially congratulate you as sort of young people on this event that you decided to organize such an event. Generally your work, but also this aspect of meeting the diplomats. I think it's a great initiative. I'm sure there will be a lot of, colleagues of mine who would also, love to join it. It's a great way, of all you need to do is like say yes to your request when you contact us, and then, speak what is on your mind. And you can speak to a young, dynamic, receptive audience about diplomacy and about important issues of development, of bilateral relations, all that, and also from a sort of personal point of view, this this request of yours for me to speak, it actually made me stop and reflect on what this new environment of COVID and virtual diplomacy, what does it mean for international relations? Of course, it's something that has been on my mind, and on everybody's mind all the time. But I have maybe not previously, sat down and tried to think consciously, and reflect. But what does it actually mean? And the most important aspect of that would be, of course, to look ahead, to look forward. What does it mean? And therefore, how should we, proactively then in this environment try to, impact the future of international relations? And this is the kind of reflection and discussion and dialogue that really needs to continue with. So also, thank you for making me, sit down and really start reflecting on this thing and made me really consciously realize that this is actually an aspect we really need to focus and continue dialogue on in different fora. So thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Indeed, my highlight from your talk is the future of international diplomacy is hybrid, and we should not forget P2P, person to person. I'm sure the participants are urgent to interact with me. We still have a couple of minutes, so I'd request those with questions, just raise your hands and then I'll point at you, then you can ask the ambassador your question. You could just tell us your name and perhaps the organization or school you're joining us from. It's open to questions now. Do we have any questions?
This is the moment when you have to come up with a question.
Okay, we have one from Moses Mukinga. Moses, you can unmute and just tell us your name, where you're coming from, and quickly ask your question.
Okay, good morning once again, and thank you, Ambassador, for that in-depth, exciting presentation. Just a matter of concern. What are the major challenges that you faced with the transition? I heard you talk of how the future is digital and how it's also going to be a hybrid kind of situation where we're going to have both physical and digital. Yeah, I don't know if you get the question.
Yeah, that what are the difficulties in that, or challenges that we might come across? Well, actually, you know, the first thing, and I'm very glad you answered that question, because this is something I did not, you know, even though it's on my mind, it's not something I think that I had addressed. And a big issue is something that the world has spoken about for a long time, and actually surprisingly little in this past year, is the digital divide. We all know that expression, digital divide, and the fact that not everybody, you know, has that same access to virtual means. When I'm in Zambia or anywhere, my diplomatic colleagues, for instance, or different, you know, organizations and professionals in Zambia do have that access just like I do, and they use the same platforms. But not everybody, when you're trying to, you know, involve people, and even if in the diplomatic circles that is not really an issue. But our, you know, in diplomacy, we are not only connecting with, you know, with other foreign ministries or other officials or other diplomats, but we do want to, you know, reach out to the wider community wherever we are. And this digital divide, you know, of course, it takes different forms in different, you know, countries, and in some places maybe the issue is more serious than others, but it applies everywhere at the same time. And even, you know, in places like Finland, not everybody is as, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of, you know, I'm sure all of you who are there, you know, in this meeting, you are much more, you know, agile in technological, you know, solutions and ways of connecting than I am, for instance, let alone some, you know, even more senior people in my country or anywhere. But it is, you know, yeah, I think this is actually something that there are many other challenges. Some of them I mentioned, you know, these issues that are specifically linked to diplomacy, and then just basically, you know, practical technical things like, you know, connections breaking and things like that. But one thing is this digital divide, which is to do, you know, is not really part of it, maybe a technical issue, but we know it's not really, you know, mainly a technical issue, but it's related to general issues of you know, development and inequalities and things like that. And for instance, we have to make sure that we don't, I think we have heard many times already during COVID that it has particularly heavily impacted women and girls. And so that is one really important aspect. And we must make sure that sometimes that applies also to these, you know, technical issues. And we must make sure that in whatever form, you know, our corporations take, that we are including also, you know, we are including women and men, and we are including the young people and you know, different sections of society. We must not kind of miss out on that aspect.
Thank you so much. We have a question from McFarlane. McFarlane just unmuted. And if you're unable to raise your hand, you can just quickly type and I'll still identify you. McFarlane, you can ask your question.
Thank you so much, Dabriso, and thank you so much to your colleagues. I think this is a really wonderful event. And Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for taking your time. I think this shows how much faith you have in young Zambians and Zambian initiatives as well. So thank you so much for that. My question was regarding young people, given the demographic of this core is these enthusiastic young people like myself, and often diplomacy seems like this is a thing that is very far-fetched and unreachable for us young people to participate, and also given Zambia is a young democracy. And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on how we can jump on this vehicle for change, because democracy is that, and diplomacy is an enabling environment to ensure that change happens, to ensure that policies that work for people are made. So how can young people participate in diplomacy and in this process for change? And what do we need to do as young people on our part to ensure that we are having a seat at this table? Thank you, Madam Ambassador.
So I do have a lot of faith in the young people in Zambia and in Africa in general, and in the world, including in India, of course, to our participants in India. Yours is, as is always said, of course. I mean, yours is the future, and how the future of the world goes. It depends on you, and you mentioned democracy, the importance of democracy in this, and this is something that is always on our sort of diplomats' mind. And for instance, when we work, as the European Union in Zambia and, anywhere, we are always, emphasizing things like, democracy, rule of law, human rights, and the role of the young people. And the more these things, I think, are strengthened in a society, the better opportunity the young people also have in participating. And things, of course, like economic development, reducing inequalities, economic issues, and one aspect of which, not the only one, but one aspect of which is increasing trade relations and investment, because that is an important one aspect of development. But the more we can promote these aspects, the more young people also have the opportunity to participate. And I think it's easy to say, but young people just have to be active, just like you are in running this kind of organization, just like you are organizing in this kind of event, just like you are in participating actively in society, finding out, educating yourselves, finding out, what is happening in the world, and then just kind of doing your best to be part of it, and influencing and contacting people, and whether it's diplomats, whether it's your own government, or whatever it is. But and many times you can do a lot, I think, also in your own communities. Sometimes quite small things can make a big difference. And role models is something that I find incredibly important. I even find it, for myself, for anybody, any human, individual, it's important to be able to see role models. So I'm sure you can see some people in your societies that you can look up to, and you can think, oh yeah, this person, they've got the same background or whatever, and this is what they've done in
So there are certain hands raised. I request everyone to go one by one.
Okay.
How much time we have?
We have about 12 minutes left.
Okay. So there are,
yeah,
I think.
So I think I'll. Sorry, H.E, you're saying?
There are two I think 2 more questions, and then we can wind up.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah. So I think I'll ask them both to ask, then she can answer the questions simultaneously. But I think we lost her again.
Yeah. She.
Okay.
I'm back.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think you answered the question anyway, Ambassador. Thank you. So we've got 2 more questions. I can ask both of them to ask them, then you can answer them simultaneously because I'm looking at time. Is that fine?
Yes, that's good.
Great. So we can have Njekwa, then Bruce. Just tell us your name and where you're coming from. Yeah. Njekwa.
My name is Njekwa Smakandov. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. And thank you, Ambassador, for availing yourself to us. My question is regarding digital security threats. Are negotiators happy in negotiating on virtual platforms which have been designed by companies from countries which may be sitting on the other side of the virtual negotiating table? Thank you.
Oh, that's a good one. Bruce?
Thank you so much, and thank you, Ambassador, for according the youth time to interact with you. Mine really is it's a question on the bilateral friendship that Finland has with Zambia, and would want to know in what ways has Zambia, contributed. Does Zambia contribute to the pertinent issues of Finland's development? Have there been are there notable issues that you can say have been of importance to both countries?
Thank you. Ambassador, before you come in, I'll just take the last question. Is that fine? Okay. Hatlen, you can ask your question then. That is the last question. Levi?
Okay, thank you. Good morning. So I think mine is a straightforward question. We understand as young people, we are faced with so much anxiety, especially amidst the elections that we'll be having. So maybe my question is what would be the word of advice or caution that would give us to young people, especially as we head towards polls? I understand so many political parties, for example, they would want to take advantage of young people because they don't have jobs. Maybe they would want them to get involved in various activities that perhaps may be endangering their lives. So how do you remain relevant, especially as we head towards polls?
Thank you. A lot of interesting questions. And very, very sort of challenging ones as well. The first one was to do with the kind of, I understand, using these digital and virtual means for discussions, for negotiations, and then, the origins of that technology or different aspects to do with digital security. And perhaps I would just say there that this, I think, would probably merit a whole separate discussion. And I believe it's an issue that will be, in the future, inevitably, because we are using more and more these digital means, it will be a more and more important question. You cannot, you need to, the platform that you are using, and whatever the aspect of digital security you're talking about, you cannot really separate the platform from the content of your discussion and from this interaction, of the human beings. So I would just say that this is, digital security is a very, I'd say, a very complicated issue. It will be a more and more, relevant issue, and all the different aspects of it. On the elections, I think I could just encourage young people to be active, to find out, and when you are, voting age, to go and, vote, because that is the thing about elections. And of course, we know in Zambia we have elections fast approaching. In democracy, it is very important that as many people as possible participate, as many people as possible give their votes, and for all the different, needs of society to be reflected properly, you need to have all the, different sections, people from all the different sections of society to come and cast their votes. So I think I can only encourage young people to educate themselves, to be aware, to follow, to be active, and when it's election time, to go and vote. I have always voted in my life, and whenever there is an election in Finland. And I still have that wonderful feeling when I go to the voting booth and I put my number, even though I know that it's just that one vote. I really have that, very special feeling that, I'm deciding, I am putting the number there, it's me. I am deciding, the politicians, you are in my hands. So it is, I really strongly feel it's a very, very, very important thing. Then there was a question about Finland-Zambia relations. A good one, I think a fantastic one, because this is how we should look at our relations. They are like, it's a two-way relationship. It's a partnership. It's a win-win and kind of benefiting both sides. And if I look at our new, the new Finland's Africa strategy, which I think earlier I briefly referred to, that is more and more about this kind of, relationship that is mutually beneficial. And also, in addition to development cooperation, which remains as an important part of it, in addition to that, focusing a lot on promoting political relations, trade relations, investment, and these, people-to-people contacts, which we already have a lot, and we really have to foster. Relations between Finland and Zambia are very lively, very, very lively, and I'm so happy about that. And we work every day to make them, even more lively, and basically to make the most of all those relations and interests that already is there. Zambians, Zambians have participated in many Finnish programs. For instance, one is young, young, capable, dynamic people have participated, for instance, in a program called Southern Africa Innovation Support Program, which tries to, highlight and support local companies. And in that program, some of them have participated in a great startup event. You should remember this name if you don't know it yet, Slush. It has a funny name, but it's called Slush. It takes place normally in Finland every November. Now it's been virtual because of COVID, but normally physically. It has grown. It was actually started by some young students many years ago, and it has grown like crazy. So it's become a really, really big event. So these young Zambians, they have actually succeeded really well in this Slush competition, and that's, of course, that's the whole point of that event. Yeah, and in business, I always look at business, and there have been some really, encouraging initiatives and business partnerships recently between Finland and Zambia. And I always see these business partnerships as something, they have to be win-win. Otherwise, it's not even sustainable. So, it's a, important contribution from Zambia important contribution from Finland, and that's when a business initiative, can be successful, and we have seen some very nice successful ones. And then of course, this whole alumni context, it's there are many active Zambians there, and I hope to see this alumni network further grow and become even more dynamic and active.
On that note, thank you so much for your time, Ambassador. We have learned a lot, and we hope that this is actually just the beginning of us having this type of conversations with you and your embassy.